But it's the backyard open, because the
But
side,
most of them are,
Done on Merrill.
I think almost all the smaller R120s are in PRUDs.
Part of
They've already
Royal
programmed
family,
open
or
spaces.
somebody they don't want to take
So
off.
there aren't any open spaces on the lots. I think that's why lots are so small.
Which is why they have the worst
it's
time.
just,
They're already jammed in.
they're already jammed in.
Look at the PRUDs.
They're from side setback to side setback.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is all in the back.
Build a couple
This-
houses in the city where
I know.
you just scare them to stake them out because they're so close to the setbacks on both sides. You got no room to move.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
So this is basically addressing the backyard.
Especially when you get those variations at night, you know, you
But
got.
even backyard, it doesn't.
That'll be a good schedule.
I know you don't. That's a given, Shane.
When I was reading it, I thought this is going to be interesting.
Well, that's what,
I think we're gonna.
let's not forget, but that's what makes this healthy, is that we shouldn't all agree. We should have.
Every vote should be
have
4 to
discussion.
3.
No, you want to do what's right, but
Yeah, but not everybody thinks the same. That's good.
I know.
That's my point.
But the thing is you got to kind of sometimes throw out your own personal biases too, and that's the hard part.
It is.
Because if it was me,
All right.
a couple of reasons.
We ready? Cameras on? Recording? We're recording? Sorry. Thanks.
My chair's got a piece of squeaking. Growling.
What's that? All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Planning Commission meeting tonight. If you'd please join us in a word of prayer from Member Wilson, and then rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we bow ours before you. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet together tonight in the capacity of the Planning Commission and the public. We invite your spirit to attend us here, that we might be able to be sensitive to people's agenda items. We pray for these things and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Assuming everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda, if there's no comment, we'll take a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any conflicts of interest for anyone to declare for anything on the agenda tonight? Having seen none, we're going to move on to a period of public comment. We have two items on our agenda tonight. The first one for the zoning map amendment and does not have has a public hearing. They both do. So the public will have an opportunity, I'm talking to three people, the public will have an opportunity to speak at those, to those specific agenda items. But we also open it up to public comment if someone would like to make comments about anything else not on the agenda. No? Okay, weather, climate, political climate, no? Okay. All right, so we're going to move out of public comment and on to item number 1 on the agenda.
Item number 1 is for application number 22.072, also known as the Jones Rezone. It is located at 5045 West Old Highway Road. The current zoning is RR1 and A20. The acreage of this property is 1.49 acres in size. They are requesting to be able to rezone it from RR1 and A20 split zone to town center. The general plan future land use map shows this property's future designation to be town center. So, with that said, staff has reviewed the application. We find it in harmony with the general plan, and we believe that the proposed rezone will not adversely impact the adjacent properties. With that, we are recommending approval. and can answer any questions you may have.
One quick question to start with. We did the same thing for the lot right next to it, didn't we, recently?
You did. It was back in October
Okay.
for 5055.
Which lot's that? Is that
Just to the
To the west.
To the west.
It's adjacent to the
That
west.
one.
Whose was
adjacent to
that?
it.
I don't remember.
I
who
can't
owned it.
remember.
I can't remember the name.
Yeah, it runs right next to that transportation corridor.
Actually, it might have been Diana Hanselman.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was it now.
What did you say the acreage was?
The acreage of this property is 1.49 acres.
Am I missing something? Because the map says 5.16. This one? Oh, right there.
Yeah, and the summary says 1.2.
Yeah.
Oh, it does?
yeah.
Oh, I apologize.
Is that the first or second packet? I think I opened the second one and it doesn't say that, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are two pictures if you go back one page. Okay, so.
Oh,
So we can verify the size.
okay, yeah. The one right below it is correct.
So what's the number?
We can verify the size
1.4.
using the zoning map.
4.9.
I thought that was just the lot north of Old Highway.
Oh.
Down here in the summary, it says 1.2.
I would think 1.2.
See that?
Yeah, I see.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
If we can get on, I can look at
Oh, on
it
exit.
Although that doesn't excuse two of the errors.
In the motion, it'd be that too.
Yeah, we
Yeah, we just want to make sure the motion's right, that's all.
It's
we're-
1.2,
Okay,
so I changed it in the motion, but forgot it, Tom, so I apologize.
okay. Okay, you guys, any questions for anybody or discussion? No? Any questions?
So, I should know this, and I don't. How close is it to the, what's constituted as the town center now? Is it right next to it?
It's within the area on the future land use map. Also,
It's just basically connected to the Johnson property on the south side there.
If it helps, it's a lot that there used to be a house on the burned down.
Mhm.
Is that Bergman's?
Bergs.
Berg's, that's it.
Yeah, it's right here.
Across the street from Trappers.
What?
What's her name?
Lloydine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions, Commissioner Graves? If not, yeah, someone ready for a motion, we can take one.
Move to go into public hearing?
You do. We'll make a motion to go to public hearing, that's what I'm at.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, a second.
Have a motion to go into public hearing in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now in public hearing for item number 1 on our agenda. It's an opportunity for anybody in the public to come comment on this. Having seen none, we'll take a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are now out of public hearing for item number 1. Any further discussion? If not, we can take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we forward a positive recommendation to the County Commission for Jones Rezone Map Amendment, application number 22.072, changing 1.2 acres from RR1 and A20 to TC, based on the findings listed in the staff report dated January 26, 2022. 2022.
23.
23.
23.
Yeah, it should be 23.
23.
Okay, we have a motion for positive recommendation.
I'll second it.
And a second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 2.
This is for application number 22.077. It's a requested text amendment for lot coverage. in the R120 zone. The current lot coverage requirement is 25%, so no structures can exceed 25% on a lot. Just some history, while this has no bearing on this came about from a citizen who submitted an application to amend the text for all lots within the R120. The home that they want to put on a lot that they purchased exceeded the 25%, and instead of going through a variance, which I don't believe would have been granted because there's no hardship on the lot itself physically, there's no steep slopes, there's no floodplain, so there's no physical constraints that would keep them from meeting the current minimum requirements. However, they have submitted an application to amend lot coverage for the entire county for R120. I have also included possible amendments to the R112 and R18 as well. In my history in planning, 25%, 30%, and 35% are extremely low. Most of the places I've worked in, these types of lots, because of the size of the lots themselves, typically have a 40 or 50% allowable lot coverage, which allows them to put their home there, along with other structures, garages, workshops, or whatnot. My recommendation is a recommendation of approval to increase the lot coverage allowance for property owners. It would not infringe on the setbacks. They would still be required to meet setbacks and height requirements. It would allow property owners a little bit more freedom with what they can do with their lots. In my research, I know the applicant has also done some research, and she'll probably speak on that. In my research, we are the lowest that I was able to find in allowable lot coverage. Weber County allows up to 40% in same types of zonings. Roy, Utah, what I could find is they regulate the lot coverage on accessory structures only. Sandy, Utah, I could not find any lot coverage requirements at all. Provo, Utah, they allow up to 50% lot coverage for similar size lots. And Orem, Utah, their lot coverage requirements applied only to accessory structures, from what I could find. Staff believes that the proposal will not be detrimental to the health and safety of the county. We believe that the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals and would provide additional property rights to property owners. With that said, we are recommending approval, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Can you remind me the 120, 12, 8 sizes?
R120? Sure. R120, it's a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. R112, minimum 12,000 square feet, and R18 is 8,000 square feet. However, in our county, we also have what are called PRUDs, or development agreements. And the PRUDs, or development agreements, are modified entitlements for properties. Those PRUDs and development agreements have reduced the required size. So, for instance, in Whisper Ridge, you have an R120 zone, but there's a PRUD, which allows for lot sizes to go down as far as 10,000 square feet. The smallest one I could find, just clicking through looking, is about 12,000 square feet. And my understanding is the current property owned by the applicant, one of the applicants, is the 12,000 square feet range. So, even though the PRUD allowed for the smaller lots, they don't have the same rights as a smaller lot. So, since it's not an R112 zone, I have to go by the R120 zone because that's the underlying zoning, even though it has a PRUD.
That was put in the PRUD.
Yeah, the PRUD did not address lot coverage at all. So the lot is actually probably closer to an R112 lot, and the R112 lot allows up to 30% coverage. So restricting lot coverage the way we're doing it with the PRUDs and other lots that don't conform to the hard zoning districts, they conform to the PRUD, but they're held to a higher standard based on their lot size.
What's that in acres? Like 20,000 square feet is?
20,000 square feet is just under half an acre, gross acre.
Any idea what Summit County has?
I did not look at Summit. The applicant may have, I don't know.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Is there any history on why it was even set at 25, 30, 35%?
I don't have an answer for that either.
Okay.
I was also surprised about the larger acreages that we have. The RR10, which is a 10-acre minimum, has a lot coverage requirement of only 5%. The RR5, which is rural residential 5-acre minimum, only has a 10%. And the RR1, which is rural residential 1-acre minimum, only has a 20% lot coverage, which is, I mean, that's...
How many RR1 lots do we have that are less than an acre?
Well, you have RR1 lots that are less than 1 acre. I don't know about that, but nearly every lot along a major street is split zoned RR1.
Right,
So
20
technically, those lots should be restricted.
And when we're talking about coverage, are we talking about the home, or are we talking about all the accessory buildings as well?
Our current code does not define lot coverage, so it would have to be every structure on the property.
Combined.
Yeah, so if they wanted to put an accessory dwelling unit, if we ever had that thing, or if they wanted to put a shed or whatever, they wouldn't be able to because it's too restrictive.
Correct. The county commission has asked me to bring a text amendment forward in the near future, which would allow for detached accessory dwelling units within the county. Just to give you a heads up.
So this would almost preempt.
This would preempt that and would
That.
allow some property owners that currently couldn't to have some additional freedom there as well.
Any questions, any more questions for staff on that? We can go to the applicant and have a discussion from there. Do you guys think, any questions right now? Okay. All right, thanks. Does the applicant want to say anything?
Good evening, Commissioners. It is a pleasure to be here with you. Most of your faces are still friendly and fun from when I was here eons ago, and I see a few new ones. And so, anyway, it's an honor to be here before you tonight and represent this item. I was contacted by Kim Wheelwright regarding this issue. He had been given my name by a common friend of ours and asked if I could help him with this issue. And when he told me what the problem was, I said, absolutely. One of the things I learned as a planner is that typically planners should be the advocate and the way to help you to an answer, and the only people that should be telling the applicant no is the legislative bodies. So therefore, the Planning Commission and the County Council, they're the ones that make the decisions, and you guys are the ones that get to say, yeah, that sounds good, or no, it doesn't. And it really does take the heat off of the planning department when you put it that way. And so, as Joshua stated, really the only option that they could give Mr. Wheelwright was go for a variance. Well, there's 5 key elements that you have to meet to verify or to qualify for a variance. Number 1 is that it cannot be a self-imposed hardship. Well, do you know how many times the Board of Adjustments or the Appeal Authority or whoever it is in charge of a jurisdiction will say, you do not need to build that big of a house. That is self-imposed hardship. Sorry, this is not a variance. And so it didn't qualify for a variance. It just simply did not. But during my interim here at Morgan County, what I did know is that almost every 1 to 4 houses in Whisper Ridge made it through with their drawings under 25%. That meant every for every 3 homes had to reduce the size because they were too big. Morgan County is the richest county in the state of Utah. What I do know about the coverages that are set in our code is that we are a county that preserves our agriculture. We want to preserve open space. A lot of people do that by parks and other amenities. We've done an amazing job by protecting our hillsides, by keeping the development down in the lower valley. But what we've also done is kept smaller footprints for houses in these zones. And the R120 is now an area where PREDs are, and the RR1 is also an area where the PREDs are. Cottonwoods is where the PREDs is an RR1. And usually they thought of this issue when they were writing the CC&Rs and the development agreement, and they would put in the development agreement that the house shall be X feet big, and the coverage regulations shall be up to this. And anyway, they did put that in the development agreement for the Whisper Ridge, that the houses shall be a minimum of 2,000 square feet. But they forgot to put in there that their coverage could be up to, say, 50%. Coventry Cove, for example, did think of that issue. They are in an R120 zone, and they put in their development agreement that their coverage regulations could be up to 50% on their lots. So they could cover as much as their lot needed to be, or they could build their dream home on the size of their lot, and knowing they had small lots. Mr. Wilray does have the smallest lot in the entire Whisper Ridge. It's 11,000 some odd feet. It doesn't quite hit it to 12,000 feet. And that causes many problems. It is a flat lot. It's not a hillside, and so he has the complete use of his lot. But it's just not the lot to build his dream home. And what is it about us as Americans that we do have that dream about? Building our dream home, right? Living the dream life, going on the dream vacation, attaining our dreams. And he's got a dream view. It's one of the most beautiful views in Morgan County. It's where you about hit all of the drivers as they stop their car right there by the canal where it runs down the slide and hits the riverbank, and in the fall that earth shattering rainbow of colors comes out, and he looks down the canyon and he can see that. It's just one of the most amazing colors. But he's 7% over on what his dream house is. To make those kind of modifications on your dream home can be earth-shattering, especially when you've been dreaming and working towards this home for years, and then you go to put in your plans and you find out that there's a coverage regulation. I literally looked up every single county in the state. We are the smallest county. We have the most restrictive county for the R120. I looked up every single jurisdictional city within that county, so the main city in that county. Only one beat out Morgan City, and that was Brigham City, and that was a 15%. So I could only find one place in Utah that was smaller than the 25% in the R120 zone, and that was Brigham City. So, but as far as all the counties, we were the smallest. A lot of jurisdictions, the way that they implement the coverage now is they say, build your home, adhere to the setbacks, and then once that's done, you're going to have a 25% restriction on your rear yard, to where no more than 25% of your rear yard can be covered by accessory structures. And that is their way of preserving some green space, so that the whole place isn't just inundated with buildings. And that is what I found roughly through, let's see, there was 3 counties that had that, and 4 cities that had that out of Utah, that they were governing the coverage that way. 60% of the counties had no coverage regulations, and an average coverage regulation for all the counties was 50%. Cities were at 45%, had no coverage regulations, and the average coverage regulation for cities with restrictions was 44%. And the average of the rear yard coverage in cities was 31% instead of 25%. And so basically I'm coming to you guys as an ex-employee that has seen it on the employee side and saw how many plants were getting turned around daily and people crying because they were not able to get their dream home, and I don't have to tell you guys that we're in this world of micro mansions, mini mansions, and with Morgan being the richest county in the state, it's time that we start letting some of those homes be built that are desirous to the home builders that are coming into the county, and we start collecting taxes on these bigger homes, and so that it's not this little tiny homes that are being taxed right to death, and maybe the tax base can be spread out a little bit better, but we definitely can get some bigger taxes off of the bigger homes that are being brought in, as opposed to limiting the size of taxes that are being brought in, because right now that's technically what we're doing, is we're limiting our tax base by doing a percentage on how big a home can be on each lot. I don't have anything else for you guys unless you have any questions for me.
What did you find for Summit County? I'm just curious. It's
I found Summit.
Did you?
Yeah.
What's theirs?
Half acre is 35% building, 50% total impervious. For a third acre, it's 45% building, 50% total impervious. And for quarter acre, it's 45% building and 50% total impervious.
And they have 2 different. So there's the Snyderville Basin and then Summit.
This is Summit.
And so that was Summit. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking for something
Yeah.
similar. Yeah,
Similar
something
to
comparable,
us,
because
huh? Yeah.
We have I don't think we
Yeah.
did anybody have any questions for the applicant?
And to give you some close,
Yeah.
Something like that close to, so we've got Weber County that's kind of like us, because we've got
'Cause the cities are excluded,
the Ogden
yeah.
Valley, and then Western Weber,
Right.
which is very agriculture, and they have 40% is their lowest, and it is only on the rear yard.
Oh, so there's no restriction on the main home, just 40% on the,
Yeah. And then it gets all fun, because then they define an
What
irregular
is rear
lot,
yard?
and you have to define where that irregular lot begins, the rear yard, and, I had to have a diagram to make it sure I could
Right.
remain consistent through that one. So,
well, we appreciate all that info. I think we just have some discussion with ourselves. You're welcome to hang out in case we have any other questions.
just
But I think
holler at me if you do.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
He's
Sure,
he's
absolutely.
the property owner.
Yeah,
I think, my name is Kim Wheelwright, and I'm pleased to be here in front of you guys. I presently live in Whisper Ridge. I wanted to maybe share a little bit of my story with you and how I got here. So, back in 2007, I was one of those few people that bought the lot from the original developer and watched him roll over, and I sat on the lot for quite a few years. And I overpaid for the lot, of course. And then when we loved the area so much, and we bought a lot. I wanted to grow old there, and I didn't want to do a lot of landscaping, so I bought a flat lot and designed a house to fit with inside the footprint, the building envelope. But when the next developer came in, Henry Walker, the houses were fairly cost effective, so I bought one of his project houses. And the first lot I bought, it is 12,000 square feet. This house that I built with Henry Walker was about a 20,000 square foot lot. So it meet the R120 specification. And most of that lot is hillside. So the actual building footprint on that existing lot that I'm on now is actually smaller than the 12,000 foot, because 3/4 of the lot is climbing up the hill. So that was, and I was kind of, I guess, confused. I designed the house for the building, for the footprint, but I didn't, I assumed that the R120 was for a 20,000 square foot lot, and then when I looked at in some of the other zones, it showed that the smaller lots gave you a higher percentage of footprint to build on. And so it's my fault for getting this far and running into that problem. But it didn't make sense that they held you to the standard of an R120 lot when it wasn't a 20,000 square foot lot. So that's kind of where I came from, and I appreciate whatever you can do. And I think Rhonda's done a great job in kind of looking what's happening out there and maybe making sense for future homeowners as well, and other lot owners, to be able to utilize their lots. Thank you.
thanks. I have a question before we start discussion. Where is the R20 in the county? R120, excuse me. Where is it mostly? Is it Mountain Green?
It's mostly Mountain Green.
In Peterson,
Peterson got
and
some.
some Croydon.
There's in Croydon, there,
Yeah,
That's surprising.
Yeah, right there by the park.
by the park.
Oh, yeah.
The one that's there in Peterson by Hines is half acre.
yeah,
Yeah.
Peterson has a lot of half acres.
Most of them, outside of the PRUDs that are in Mountain Green, most of them are half acre. So my question is, well, I think you made a great point. 40% of half an acre gives you this much. I can follow that logic. But in the PRUDs, they shrunk the half acre lots down. So 40% is now 40% of a smaller lot, when it kind of makes sense that it would be 40% of the half acre. Or, excuse me, yeah, 35. 25% of the half acre, excuse me. So I can follow that logic. That was just my initial thought was, that was kind of a little bit of an aha moment for me, like, okay, yeah, if you got half an acre, 25% of that is much bigger than 25% of
Smaller.
the smaller PRUD restricted lot, yeah. So start discussion publicly down here, why not?
This is my line. I feel like we have a set rule for a reason, and I do appreciate, I don't remember who asked, if there's a reason why we set 25, 30, and 35, but your responsibility is to make sure you know what is available to build on the property that you buy.
To me, this is more of a PRUD, I can't say, issue versus this. So if they've already had, is there a development agreement with Whisper Ridge? So
Doesn't address this though, so the R120.
But I guess that was part of the reason why the PRUDs was set up, was to work the lot sizes, all that to make it work. Because it gave them freedom to do a little bit more. And in my don't understand it totally, but in my mind, it's more of that issue to fix versus changing for all the lots. So.
Debbie?
I think a question, to answer the question of where did it come up with the 25, I think that 25% coverage has been in our code forever. As new code is written, it has just moved over the table without any consideration. And back in the 70s, homes weren't that big. And so I think at that time it was probably appropriate. And I think as times have changed, it has not changed. Looking at Summit, Summit County seems very similar to Morgan County in that aspect, and they deal with impervious surface. And so I guess if we're going to address changing the code, we probably should add a definition of what is coverage.
What's impervious?
Impervious surface, hard surface, hardscape, like driveways, patios.
Is anything that restricts water percolation through. So like asphalt, it's
Cement,
impervious. Gravel, not impervious, because it allows the water to percolate through.
Okay.
So I think if we're going to change it, and I'm looking at the table we have now, and we have the R18, the 8,000 at 35, I may be open to moving the 35 across to the half and the quarter acre. That's kind of...
So should our discussion first be if it's what we're considering coverage before we even...
Are we going to deal just with structures, or... Like I say, Summit makes both impervious and building.
Yeah, and some don't restrict the main dwelling unit at all, they only restrict the backyard.
Yeah.
So there's,
I'm not for that.
That gets complicated, I think.
Yeah, I think that's...
I think it covers the main building and any other buildings on the lot. I think that kind of maintains the same restriction. If we were to have a discussion about increasing the percentage, then that covers, okay, you can have the main house and any
Outbuildings?
outbuildings.
What about things like carports? Would that be considered a building, or since it doesn't have walls?
Building code wise, anything that requires a roof and engineering, carport has to be engineered for weight load, snow load, wind. So my understanding of the building code is anything that requires, one, engineering to design, and two, if it's supported and has a roof.
So that would be caught up in the definition if we are talking just...
A carport would be considered a structure.
Okay.
Historically, that's how it's been working. Everything down to a top shed. So you can use the top shed in your yard without going over the
This is nice and orderly, so we'll just gotta give his opinion if you don't mind. We're just gonna go through, but I don't see any problem with what Josh has recommended here. It makes sense to me. I think 25 is just too restrictive. And living in Whisper Ridge myself, I understand, most of the R120 issues are there. They're really not. You see R112 and R18 a little bit in, like I said, in Peterson and stuff like that. Most of the R120 is just these tiny little lots, and 40% of a tiny little lot is consistent with the rest of the makeup of the neighborhood. Like he said, you know, on his flat lot, it's a little bit different. Most people are restricted by slopes in the county anyway, so you would never get anywhere near this anyway. Plus, I think that property rights are, you know, as a landowner, I'm pro property rights, and if I want to build a house on my land, I bought it, and it makes sense to me. That's my position.
So I don't like arbitrary numbers, and I think 25 just seems arbitrary. It doesn't seem, I mean, if we don't have a history on why it was decided that way. And the other thing too is that we really are trying to get people to build in areas like, you know, townships. So if we, you know, if we say, hey, you can only do 25%, well, all of a sudden they have to create larger lots, which means fewer lots, which means that you're going to have people spread out versus what we're actually trying to do in these areas. So I think from a practical standpoint, if you do up it to 40%, you can group people. I don't want to use the word cluster because we don't do that here. But, not yet. But no, you know, but we can group them more efficiently where we've identified what we want. So this is my.
And just to comment on that, I think it keeps it out of the this type of development away from the RR5 and the areas in Milton and Stoddard and those areas where they are larger lots, and you're just not going to have the same kind of growth out there, you know, with these type of homes. And it's just I think it's appropriate for the areas that are actually in the county.
And one other point, the setbacks will remain the same.
Yeah,
We're not changing setbacks.
Yeah. So setbacks and slopes are going to restrict this. It's not like everybody can do this. It's just
Well, but to a certain extent.
Sure.
Because it all depends on where you're at. You go down to Peterson with those, you don't have the issues you do in Whisper Ridge.
It's flat.
Right, but the lots are bigger too.
Half acre.
Yeah, they're the full
But what I'm saying is
20,000.
you could have the same scenario, but in a different area.
But they could have the
where
same
it's
size
flat.
house just because they have a little bit more backyard. That's all I was saying.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I have more comments, but I'm waiting for
Yeah,
you
okay.
to finish.
Yeah, I'll shut up. But let's just.
I'm in no big rush. If you want to say something, I'll go after you.
I'd rather just see where everybody's at so we can kind of just talk to each other's points if that's okay.
Put this in simple man's terminology, will you, Josh? Are we talking like a bird's eye view of the lot? We're saying the rooftop cannot exceed that amount, is that what you?
Total rooftop coverage, so it would be the primary home plus any accessory.
So like if they put a
structure.
barn up or like
Right.
whatever they define as a barn?
So, yeah, so the 40% would allow them to put the larger home on there, but it would also open it up to put a detached garage or a detached shed or use more of their lot.
So they could put 30% with the main home and then still have 10% of the lot for.
Well, it wouldn't come down to that. It'd be less than that even because the building code and the fire code also
Right.
have restrictions for how close buildings can be. So you have your normal setbacks. If you open it up to a 40% total lot coverage, they build a 3,000 square foot home or whatever, let's just say that's 30% of the coverage. They wouldn't be able to cover the remaining 10% because your setbacks are going to restrict it, as well as the distance between the accessory structures and the primary home have to be met as well. But it does provide them the opportunity to put an accessory structure in the back, which they may not have right now because of the 25% restriction.
And I greatly appreciate what Haley and Shane are saying, but I look at it, and if the number is not set for a reason, then I kind of agree with Chris on it. I don't have a problem with these numbers that you've set up. That's my opinion.
Thanks.
My turn, huh?
It is, we're putting you on the spot, you've been anticipating it.
Yeah. Waiting best for last here. I mean, I really don't have a problem with it. I do think about keeping Morgan as a rural community. That kind of means keeping open space. But if we're pushing these limits, then that means we're kind of crowding out some of that open space too. That was one thought I had. The other thought was I like Shane's point about the problem doesn't seem to be with the actual R120 zones, but PRUDs seems to have the problem, which is something they probably should have looked at when they were setting it up. But with that said, I mean, obviously I'm okay with adjusting it too. With all the regulations and things that go along with setbacks, there's not a whole lot people could do in R120 zones. You get a little bit bigger house, but not much.
Can I say my comment?
Yes, ma'am.
So based on some comments that have happened along the line, now I feel like we're changing this for one lot. And that's not what we're in the business for. Like, we shouldn't be changing our code because of one lot.
That's a good point. Even though the applicant ran into this issue, the application was proposing to change it for the entire county. So this not only affects that lot, but it also provides current lots that may have reached that minimum standard to put the accessory structures on there. So while...
Which is almost preemptive to what we got coming down from the county council in the future. Because we may have to readdress this if we have ADUs, detached ADUs, then these coverages, 25% wouldn't be big enough to allow for that. We'd have to reopen this conversation back up again anyway. But just to your point, I'm not considering just this lot. I mean, I know it was, the conversation was a little bit focused on the applicant, but that's not the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at how much R120, 12, and 8 do we have? Where is it? And what makes the most sense? These numbers seem kind of arbitrary, and like Dustin said, there's not a lot you can do anyway. The difference between 25 and 40, visually, practically, is really not that much on a small lot.
If we were doing it for just one lot, we would have gone about amending the development agreement and doing it for one lot. This was what I looked at the actual schematic of what the problem was, and the problem was the R120 zone, period. Nobody can fit their homes anymore in the R120 zone. Their houses are just too big. And that I can take from personal experience. 4.5 years of personal experience of measuring home after home after home that came through these county doors. And so it wasn't for just this house. It was for the entire community and each resident that continues to move into an R120 zone. As Debbie said, the R120 zone has been on the books since the beginning, and I would dare bet with her if we went and grabbed the book, it's been 25% since the beginning, and that was a huge home back then. It was ginormous. And I know when we built our house back in 2008, the guy was like, "This is the most modest house we've ever seen, or we've seen being built in forever." And we're thinking, "What do you mean this is a ginormous house?" and it just wasn't. People build big homes these days, so. Yeah, if
and
we
garages.
just wanted to do,
Yeah, that's what they said.
It's the garage.
I was gonna say, do you remember the monster garage? You know, that you got taken over because they just wanted to have just a little sitting room and a bathroom for the guy to go work on and stuff, and anyway, it ended up turning into a huge mess. But yeah, if we wanted to do this just for one thing, we would have done that to amend the development agreement. And we didn't feel that was the right route to take.
But back to that comment, I'm looking at it, as R120 is it's almost exclusively a Mountain Green kind of problem. There is some Peterson, I agree, but, I mean, the vast majority of it's Mountain Green. So from a Mountain Green perspective, this makes sense to me. That's all I was saying.
It's a suburban.
So is the majority of the R120 in Mountain Green in a PRUD?
No, because the Highlands, no.
Yeah.
Highlands
Depends on
not.
how the stuff was developed, because the PRUD ordinance was deleted after, I don't know what the last one was. Whisper Ridge, probably. Yeah. So now anything else that was existing R120 just had to go by these standards. So there's pieces. There's quite a bit of it was RR1, just along Old Highway, but they're RR1 with like less than half an acre. So they were allowed bigger homes because it was RR1 rather than zoned R120. But anyway.
What's the coverage in RR1?
Only 20%.
Which
So it's even smaller.
we need to probably address at a later date.
And
Because if you
have an
think an
RR5.
RR1 and you have a 50 by 100
10%.
barn arena, that's 5,000, I mean,
So
you can have a 3,000 square foot house in that barn and you're
that neighborhood is
maxed out
RR5.
on a 1 acre lot, so
That's less than 10% of the lot.
that probably needs to be addressed another time, maybe.
It's just not happening.
Yeah. You just can't get it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to open that discussion up to R1 here, though.
No, I don't think
We have a
so.
specific application from the public to look at our existing
We just
codes.
need to-
This is what's before us. Everybody's kind of heard where you're at. If you guys want to have any further discussion, or would someone like to?
Or
Proceed.
are we sticking with the 40?
40, yeah.
That's a great point. So maybe what's
I feel like there's
What's
kind of two
COA 1?
discussions.
What's that?
I feel like there's kind of two discussions.
Okay.
Whether we're gonna change it,
And then
for one, and
what do you
then
want?
what's it gonna get changed to?
Okay.
Are you gonna do your public hearing?
We're about to, yeah, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I think we should hear from the public.
I think it's a great
Before we
idea.
go on, I move to go into public hearing for item number
A motion, and I have a second over here.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now in public hearing for this.
I was not going to say anything, but I did have a question. Debbie Sessions did answer it. But Tina Kelly, Mountain Green. So Whisper Ridge, Rollins Ranch, and Trappers Loop maybe, Trappers Point maybe, and Cottonwoods are all PRUDs or PUDs, and that's the majority of where your issues are. The issues aren't in the Highlands. The Highlands are pretty well built out, but that is half-acre zoning. I will say, this is an editorial, the PUD and the PRUD, they were given concessions to be able to put more houses in on that acreage if they condensed, and they got smaller roads. There were other concessions that were given, and that is an issue, but it is their issue. The developments went forward, and that is why we did away with the PRUD. It was becoming problematic. So when you go to redevelop a PRUD, I hope you will have lengthy discussions about the past problems. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else from the public want to comment? Having seen none,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
We're now out of public hearing, excuse me, we're now out of public hearing for this, for item number 2. So back to your point, Haley, I think, yeah, you're right, I think we do have two things to discuss, you know. Should we, and then what should it be, right?
Right. And yeah.
So if we were, then the first course of action, the first option would be, yes, we agree that we should increase it, then what should it be to? Want to have a discussion about that, if we were to go that way?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to start it down there, Haley? What do you think it should be if we did recommend approval?
Well, I'm gonna vote against it, so.
But if we did?
Well, it doesn't matter what the number is.
Okay,
I'm with Haley.
okay.
I'm for changing it, but I'm not married to any percent. I'm like 40, 35, I'm,
Okay. I'm for changing it. I think 40 is good. I do think what Josh said, there's nothing in this text tonight that that addresses whether it's the main building or the whole thing. Can we do that here? Do we advertise that appropriately?
Well, I've just interpreted lot coverage to be all structures on the lot.
So would
I
it be
would say
helpful to
that-
add clarification no matter what we do tonight?
You can add a clarification if you want.
Would that be helpful for you moving forward, or we have to do another public hearing to
No,
amend
it's
another?
germane to the discussion.
Okay.
So you're looking at lot coverage in general for the R120 and R112, R18, but, so it's germane. If you want to add a definition of lot coverage or ask me to add a definition of lot coverage prior to the county commission meeting, I can do that.
Because it'd be a continuation of public hearing?
Well, it has to go to the county commission.
Yeah, it'll be a public hearing there for there as well. I think that would be the best way.
I'm good with 40. I think, like you were saying, this doesn't affect the entire county. It affects the parts of the county that are already essentially urbanized or semi-urbanized. And I think it just allows us to keep the concentrations at a higher level in there rather than making them spread out more.
Yeah, I haven't changed my mind a lot. I look at a lot, if you had a half-acre lot, by the time you get your house on there, and if you want an accessory building, a shop, or whatever, or a barn, I mean, your difference between your numbers in R8 is 5. The highest one is 28 or 20,000 feet, and it's 15, which isn't inconsequential, but depends on how big your barn is or how big your outbuilding is.
I think more people are putting in chicken coops and things like that now too. It's just going to be a covered building.
Yeah.
Justin? Thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still good with changing it. I'm not sure about what the number should be. Just because, as Josh mentioned, I mean, there's already the setbacks, there's, fire restrictions. I mean, these small lots, there's not much more they could do anyways. So I don't know, maybe not even setting a number is one thing I thought about. But, I don't know what number to put.
So would you say that the 40 is arbitrary?
It could be, yeah.
So is it worth discussing whether or not there should be any for these small lots?
remove coverage restrictions?
No.
You're gonna have 20,000 square feet of.
But you still have setbacks.
Yeah, I know.
And it has to be sellable. I mean, even though it's your dream home, I think most people know at some point it's probably going to sell.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I'm just
So I do
suggesting
like
if you wanted to, you could.
A number. The reason, and I don't think, I mean, if 40 is arbitrary, at least it's consistent with our rest of the state. That would be my point. Or more consistent, I should say. Assuming that other planning commissions and commissions have had in-depth discussions throughout the state, didn't just pick arbitrary numbers.
Yeah, if you had a 20,000 square foot lot exactly.
Right.
And you remove lot coverage completely, you could have 11,200 square feet of roof coverage.
55%.
55%.
Oh, what's that actually? Yeah, so with no restrictions at all, 55% would be the highest number.
And that's
So,
using setbacks.
so 40, I feel like 40 is a good balance between maintaining, I forget who, but yeah, you were talking about PRUDs, maintaining the open space in the rural feel. You know, the people in Mountain Green have a different definition of what rural is, but these PRUDs all accounted for open space. The open space is already there. It's not, it hasn't been, it was basically not put into people's backyard. They said, let's keep the hillsides and these open spaces here, assuming that people could use their tiny little lots that were left with the huge setbacks from the main road, from the tiny little road that runs through Whisper Ridge. The frontage was, the front setback was restrictive in some cases, but. Okay, so now it's just who wants to make the first motion? Who won't? Kind of everybody has a feel for where
Well,
we're
are we
at.
splitting it?
The two things, you want to make a motion for, should we?
Well, that's what, when you said who wants to make the first.
No, I meant there seems to be some people
No.
for and some people against, so.
You want to make a first attempt at a motion?
Yeah, do you want to make one and see if it passes, or would somebody else like to make one?
I'll attempt one. I move to recommend approval to the County Commission for the revision of Morgan County Code Section 8-5B-9 to amend the language to increase the lot coverage for a single-family residential districts based on the text and findings as in the staff report dated January 26, 2023, with the addition that a definition written by the zoning administrator be submitted prior to the county commission that refers to structures coverage that
defines
coverage as structures on the lot. Is that making sense?
Yep.
Are you understanding? Close enough?
Yeah, I think so. Did you catch it? We good?
We got it.
Okay. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Second that motion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Can you do roll call, just so we know?
Yes, we can. So, Dustin, aye?
Yes.
Aye.
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 No.
No, no? I don't need to vote, so we got 4-2. It passes. Motion passes. I will say this, that it is awesome when we don't agree. Just for people to remember, this is the way it's supposed to happen. We're not all supposed to agree, and I appreciate everybody's opinion. But there's a reason why there's 7 of us on here, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
The reason it's an odd number, right?
Correct. Odd people and an odd number. Me, I'm talking to myself. All right. Thank you, everyone. So on to item number 3 on the agenda. Area plan update.
I don't have any updates yet.
Okay, anybody else?
Nope.
No.
Mine's done, I just gotta grab it, give it to Gary, or to Josh.
Okay. All right. There's nothing else there, business and staff questions?
So the next planning commission meeting on 2/9 will have another text amendment, which was requested by the county commission to change the final plat expiration from 6 months to 2 years. So I've drafted that. That'll come to you then. It's the only real item on there, so I'm going to be asking Garrett, who's also going to be there, to do 2 things. One, talk to us about, and when I say us, I mean you, about the definition of reasonable when it comes to conditional use permits and stipulations. And then he's also, I talked to Debbie, and the planning commission has to have so much training, right? And so to have
Every year.
Every year, yeah.
And we were late last year.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to see if he can do something on the open meeting laws.
Would that cover the online? We don't have to do the online?
No, we just need training,
Well, perfect. Oh, that'd be awesome for you guys.
in-person training.
So that'll be the next agenda. It's pretty light. The one after that, though, is that's when Schlichte and Nettleton are coming back with their CUPs, possibly, depending on if UDOT answers. There might be also a
on the following one, so the 9th might be a little light, and then the next one will be
Really heavy.
out with a bang. Okay?
Crap, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, what's the, 6 months to 2 years?
For final
Did
plat?
they say why?
Because final plat, 6 months is, I'm just gonna say my personal, it's ridiculously short, because every 6 months they have to come and request a continuance, an extension on that. To get all your infrastructure in 6 months is nigh impossible. So to make it a little bit easier for the final plats to, instead of having to come back and continually request extensions, they felt that they wanted to extend it right up front and then allow for a 1 year extension.
There were
I
supply
just feel
chain
like that's
problems.
a giant gap.
Did you say 1 year or 2 years?
2.
2 years. Yeah,
6 months to 2 years.
so every other place that I've worked in, final plats are good for 2 years. And in fact, when the final plat goes through and is recorded, the only way that you can undo that is through council or commission motion. So it has to come back and actually go through a motion. Utah's a little bit different, but yeah, 2 years is pretty standard in nearly every place I've worked. And I've worked in Oregon, Arizona, and Kentucky. 6 months is really short. I've never seen it that short, ever.
Well, I was just surprised to see the extra year and a half instead of like an extra 6 months or an extra year.
Yeah, 2 years is pretty standard where I've worked, but given the current supply chain issues and how long it is taking people to get through the process and to get their final plats and the infrastructure in, 2 years isn't that long.
Yikes. I guess we'll talk more about it on the 9th, right?
Yeah.
What about the ADU thing that we were talking about? Is that something on the radar?
Yeah, so the county commission has also asked me to bring text amendments to allow for detached accessory dwelling units forward, as well as a planned community zone district.
Oh, a what?
A planned community.
Oh.
It's like a PRUD,
Right.
it's different.
You said detached dwelling units?
Cluster
I get
PRUD.
detached.
Dwelling units?
Like mother-in-law apartments?
Yeah.
Right now, our code only allows internal accessory dwelling units, so you could have that second dwelling unit, but it has to be attached to the primary structure. Our code-
Does that count against their coverage?
Yeah,
By
it's-
tonight's
it would have to be
motion,
part of the
would.
structure. The only difference is, right now, it's required to be attached, so it has to be attached to the primary structure. What they want is the ability to detach those, kind of like a guest house, casita, something like that.
Tough Shed turned into a...
Yeah.
So they can rent them out.
Technically, a tough
Bedroom.
shed could be
Or-
turned into
or to
it
family
because the
members.
tough sheds are designed to the International Building Code.
I just know other states that they do that a lot.
I've even seen some cities allow the use of those shipping containers to be turned into living quarters. It takes a lot, they have to be engineered.
Well, this is a little preemptive for the Tesla homes as well.
Right.
$5,000 for, I mean, that's a thing, it's coming soon. And they're all one home, set it up on a foundation. It's better than Tough Shed, it's all self-contained. And now your kids can live on your property in the back, and while they're earning money to buy property in Morgan County, so they can
Yeah,
build.
I'm not sure what codes those are built to. If they're built to
They're
the
probably
same,
HUD.
well, if they're built to the same codes as like a mobile home or a recreational vehicle, then they're not built to the IBC.
Yeah.
If they're
I
like
wonder.
if they're like a recreational vehicle or a mobile home.
I don't think so. I think, I mean, I'll have to do some more research, but I think they were designed to solve these problems. Like, okay, first, we've got the capability to do detached ADUs, buy your Tesla home, put it on a small piece of property, and
Yeah.
you don't have to buy wood and construct it. You can just live in a smaller house. And,
I'd have to look into it to know what codes they built it to.
yeah, it's interesting.
Because if they're not built to the IBC, then they're considered a recreational vehicle, which is built to the ANSI code, which is a lesser code.
Shipping containers are not very comfortable to live in.
Shipping containers should not be lived in.
Harvest
unless
Falcon?
they're-
Especially if you're with the Hungarian army. They like to hug a lot, it was weird.
Norwegians are like that, too.
Yeah, it's like, most of us put our pants on when we hike.
We digress.
It was very odd.
Yes, very cozy.
Yes.
Any other business or questions for staff? If not, did get me and Dustin's updates to the minutes? Yeah?
So moved?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
We were stuck in Kosovo, and they put us in